of the conversation of humanity. He says, Africans have no historical part of the world. It has no movement or development to exhibit historical movements in it. That is the northern part, meaning Egypt, belong to the Asiatic or European world. Now here's this monkey taking Africa, taking Egypt out of Africa. He says, I can't deny these pyramids. I can't deny this Sphinx. I can't deny these obelisks, but that ain't no African stuff. That's in the northern part. So he removes Africa, he removes Europe out of Africa. And in fact, even today, you go to your encyclopedias, you ought to go to encyclopedias, you go to Google, and you Google African philosophy and Egyptian philosophy. That's like saying, how are they different? It's like I'm saying, this is Albany. This is Albany people in New York people. How can you do that? But he does that and no one challenges him. He says Egypt will be considered in reference to the passage of the human mind from its eastern to its western phase, because they're developing the idea of the west and the idea of the east. But it does not belong to the African spirit. What we properly understand, I want you to read this here, this language. What we properly understand by Africa is the unhistorical, undeveloped spirit still evolved in the conditions of mere nature, in which had to be presented here only as a threshold of world history. So it's like we Africans are sort of creeping up on world human history. We peeking in, trying to get to the point of understanding what it means to be human and contribute to society. So he removes it. What he does is he establishes the idea of the null, the idea of nothing being tied to Africa. So he creates this notion of the nullification of anything African. Any contribution you see of the African world is taken from Africa and given to somebody else. We kind of see that sometimes today. We clearly saw it in the African-American creation of the only American musical form called jazz. We created it, they take it out and say, no, it's an American. They don't give no credit to that. They don't give no idea that this creativity is ours, because he's created in this narrative, in this story, that there is nothing of value in Africa. And we do that, we follow along. We never go and say, what did Africa have to say about this? We're dealing with child rearing, we're dealing with war, we're dealing with Indian. We never ask the question, what did Africa have to say about that? We go to some old dead European, and we figure out what they said, and we replicate that because we've been educated. One of the big architects, what's in Africa? That's what this Raymond Nino de Gobino, he's an interesting character because he just gave himself a title. He ain't had no title, no clean title. He said, I'm going to be a count. He just makes himself a count. I'm amazed at this because I can't even go to the bank and cash my check without having 4 or 5 pieces of ID. But he just made himself a count. De Gobino says that human progress went from African primitivism to European civility. That there is this direct line, and the savages are you all, and the civilized are us. He says, he described the Brazilians, he did a whole head trip on the Brazilians. You can see that today in Brazilian culture. He says that he described Brazilians as a completely mulatto population of polluted blood and spirit and frighteningly ugly. And so now we are Africans in Brazil, and we gotta realize we got something in us. We got this polluted blood in us. It looks like a mulatto, but is that the mulatto is evidence that the African blood polluted the pure, pristine whiteness of humanity. These are people putting ideas in our head that's part of the grand narrative. Now, the Gobino says, interestingly enough, somehow there must be a substantial difference. I like this language. He's like, he's pondering. Sometimes there must be a substantial difference between the white and the Negroid man. The difference is a direct result of the difference in conditions in Europe and in Africa. He's born in 1860. He said 10,000 years ago, where's he getting he got no Google now? He said 10,000 years ago, during the last ice age, the climate of Africa was quite pleasant. The inhabitants of this continent had at that time no need to exert themselves. Watch this language here. No need to exert themselves in order to survive. Food was relatively abundant and the temperature was pleasant. So here we are, Africa, we're just hanging out. Damn, give me a little mango here. I'll go give me some bananas. I ain't got to think about nothing else. I mean, and the fish jump out the water and fry themselves. I ain't do nothing in Africa. That's what he wants us to believe. He says that in Europe, on the other hand, had to battle very low temperatures, dangerous and abundantly present man-eating predators like wolves and bears, and above all, the food supply was very meager. The humans in Europe therefore had to use their brains to overcome these problems, while the humans in Africa had hardly any need to use their potential skills. They set up this dichotomy. Africans ain't got no brains. They had no reason to develop no brain power. Europeans did it. He says this is the explanation why the Negroes are still quite undeveloped, while the Caucasians have been able to use their intelligence to build an impressive civilization. And places like this, places like these Western universities, continue to advance subtly that idea. So he creates now, we got to know, he creates this idea of the negation, that whatever is the good, the African is the negating of that. All right, so these ideas develop this thing. Then finally, Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes is an interesting person. He was a British businessman in South Africa. He sort of was one of the architects for apartheid. But he says, we are the first race in the world, and that the more of the world we inhabit, the better. You hear that? We white folks are the first race in the world, and that the more of the world we inhabit, the better. It is for the human race. It's good for us to inhabit the world. He says the native is to be treated as a child, denied the franchise. Now, think about this relationship. I remember when I was a student at UO, I worked as a social worker, and it was amazing to me how these brand new social workers, young, and I hope you all say I'm not racializing this, but these young white social workers would come and they would talk to grandmothers like they were children. They'll say, Mrs. Nobles, you just have to sit down. Yeah, Mom said, damn it, I ain't got my money yet. My children are home. But you can't be upset. You just, I will not serve you unless you sit down and calm yourself. I guess the 20-year-old woman talking to this 50-year-old woman as if she were a child. And that attitude, we see repeating stuff over and over again, because that attitude is spoken to by the seed that I'm saying. These are all men of their time, so not individual ones. Don't think that I call them out. These are men of time reflecting the ideas of their era, of their period. I'm just giving them as sort of icons to represent this thinking. Cecil Rhodes says that he believed to have helped pave way for South Africa's apartheid, and Rhodes set up a provision called the Rhodes Scholarship. And even today in our Western University, if you get a Rhodes Scholarship, you big dog, you big time. To get a Rhodes Scholarship means you're highly intellectual, you're important. But look what he does. He sets up a Rhodes Scholarship, an international postgraduate award for students to study at the University of Oxford. So you know, the best place in the world is the University of Oxford. If you can compete and get a Rhodes Scholarship to go to the University of Oxford, you're something very important. He says the goal of the Rhodes Scholarship was to promote civic-minded leadership among young colonists. You hear what he said? He said, I'm going to take the people who are going to go in and take your stuff from you. I'm going to develop a civic-minded leadership for young colonists to provide intellectual leadership for three things. One, the furtherance of the British Empire. The only purpose of education is to be able to further the needs of the British Empire. Two, to bring the whole uncivilized world under British rule. And you know, when I was in history, it said British used to brag about the Union. The sun never sets on the Union Jack. And they had all over the place. India, Africa, Asia, they were all over the place. This is his thinking. He said bring the world hopes, uncivilized world under the British rule. And the third thing was to recover the United States. He was pissed off that there was an American Revolution and America seceded from Britain, from Europe, and became an independent country. He said, what we got to do is figure out how to take back the United States. And the fourth one was to make the Anglo-Saxon race one empire. Rhodes believed that if whites maintain their position as the supreme race, the day may come when we shall be thankful that we have the natives in their proper place. Stay in your place, black people. Stay in your place, Negro. You see, these ideas don't fall out of water. We live in it. We don't understand where they're coming from. It has to do with a narrative, a grand narrative. And so he creates this idea about racial domination. We have sort of three major streams in this Western grand narrative: nullification, negation, and racial domination. And so we end up fighting ourselves trying to advance against those things. So this Western grand narrative is really based upon Greco-Roman Judeo-Christian thought. Some people even argue that it's also tied to Islamic thought, because Islamic thought was influenced by Aristotelian thinking. But But that's another lecture. But in this Western grand narrative, Greco-Roman, Judeo-Christian thought, the idea is, how do we find what is real? What is real? And in that notion, what is real is matter. Is matter. The material world is what's real. And that in that material world, there are linear oppositionary polarities that give us the understanding of relationships. Linear oppositionary polarities. So there's linear, up, down. And in those polarities, everybody's placed. So where's white? Where's black? Where's male? Where's female? Where's old? Where's young? Where's good? Where's bad? Everything is captured in. That's the grand narrative. It describes and prescribes reality. Everything is put in this linear oppositional polarity. And that the importance of separateness and distinction. And we see some stuff coming out of philosophy, the logical positivism, and biological determinism, social Darwinism, natural science reductionism, postmodernism, even postmodernism, postmodernism now. But it doesn't violate this idea about how the world is constructed, how reality is constructed. And the knowing frame that comes out of that comes out of the Genesis story. And every group has a Genesis story. Now, if any of y'all think I'm going to be blaspheming and talking about the Bible, don't do that. Don't be putting no crosses on me. Don't be sitting on stuff at me, because I'm not doing that. I'm talking intellectually. But in the Judeo-Christian Genesis story, there is an understanding about the nature of man, having domination over all the living things. There's also a relationship between male and female inscribed in that Genesis story. And so I'm cool. God done made me and cool, let me out in the Garden of Eden, and then Eve comes up in here. She started whispering in my ear about this damn apple. Said, man, eat the apple, you're gonna know something. So I'm gonna tell you, Eve, she kind of nice. I'm gonna go for this, so I go eat the apple. And lo and behold, I learned that I am naked. And that God gets pissed off. God says, you done violated, all you're supposed to do is be over all the stuff, pissed off. I'm kicking you out the Garden of Eden. What does that do psychologically? It says to me that the problem with my having a cool life is the woman. If that woman hadn't told me about that, I wouldn't have to work. Now I can live every day, go to slave because of the woman. So it creates a psychological, subliminal antagonism between the female and the male based upon a Genesis story. Now other groups have Genesis tales, but we don't get the chance to interrogate those. And even we go to these majors, we're majored in theology and philosophy, you don't get a whole lot of discussion about African thought. You get different versions of French or German or philosophy. And so this intellectual mindset that emerges out of this, what I want you to see, emerges out of it, focuses on just promising to difference, to aristocracy, to elitism, to racism, sexism, genetic inferiority, all those things that come out of the big dog's notion about what is the grand narrative. And it becomes, the bottom line becomes, it is a comparative instinct. Everything's compared. What's better than? What's superior and inferior? What's good versus bad? What's white versus black? What's man versus? So it's a comparative modality. So when I see other, don't care what's male, when I see other, my instinct in the Western grand narrative is to compare who's in charge here. I see a brother in the street. We walked up, I'm doing the Western mindset. First thing I do is look at him and say, man, I think I can take him. I take his money and take his old lady. We start doing all sorts of crazy talk about comparative, about who's in charge, who's in authority. That comes in a very subtle way. We get our children now killing each other. I mean, they're actually, quite said, they're doing a better job than the police, but the police are doing, they're catching up. But the idea of that I will kill you over something that has to do with some comparative value that somebody else has orchestrated. Next one, please. So this episteme side is important. And I'm giving you a quick glimpse of the ideas in this Western grand narrative that I want you all to think about and reflect on as you go away in terms of all your classes, all your conversation about this Western grand narrative, how you're making choices and taking chances based upon this Western grand narrative. But the Western grand narrative, it is uncritically accepted, and that's what I'm posing you all, to be critical of it. It's uncritically accepted. The resulting condition is epistemicide for the world's people. No other people can think. Epistemology, you all know, has to do with the study of understanding how you know what you know. And so I can't know nothing outside of the Western grand narrative steam. And once that's done uncritically, I am dead epistemologically. So we got to think about how do we